Hello, hello, good afternoon, good evening, good evening. This is Queen Battle, Battle First Aid Responder Services here, coming live from downtown Boston, Massachusetts. Very, very happy to be here today and happy to share a little bit. This is going to be one of my, I'm a little late, it's about 7:45, so I do apologize Eastern Standard Time for the tardiness. But I just want to quickly, before Zoom kicks me out, as well as talk a little bit about what is going on and what Dr. King's vision was for the 2020 National March on Washington. So guys, follow with me. I know you guys can follow with me on YouTube as well as Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, all my other handles that I have, my social media handles. So again, there is going to be the National March on Washington. It's going to be the 57th anniversary of the National March on Washington. And I am very, very, very happy to be a part of that. I haven't made any specific plans yet, but I do know that Reverend Al Sharpton and his team is hosting the event. So I'm very, very happy to be a part of it. It's going to be the National March on Washington, the 2020 National March on Washington in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. So I'm very, very happy to be a part of that with Reverend Al Sharpton and his team. So shout out to the organizers that are helping Reverend Al Sharpton out with this almost, I don't know how many people are going to be there, if it's going to be 1,000, 5,000, or even 1,000,000 people are there, but hopefully the community will come out to support the Black Lives Matter movement and what we are trying to promote, which is positivity, uplifting the Black community, healing from grief and wounds, as well as stopping police brutality and prejudice around the world. So I'm very happy to be a part of it here, to have this platform to be able to speak to myself, as well as I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to a couple of people before I begin. I'm going to try to make this is my first Zoom presentation. It's going to be a continued series up until the 2 weeks left following the National March on Washington. So this is going to be a continuous series. Every single Wednesday night, we're going to go ahead and continue to follow up on this and let pretty much know the progress that we have going towards this movement and towards the march. So this is going to be going on until August the 13th or 14th. So I'm very, very happy to be a part of this platform and able to speak to you guys. I don't necessarily have a PowerPoint presentation ahead of me, but we're just going to have to make some quick points. So you guys can go ahead and go ahead and get your pen and paper out ready, make some notes, do what you guys can. Or pretty much what you can do is just follow with me. I'm the only person that's speaking tonight, though I don't have any participants yet, but I'm going to head and try to get out the word out there and spread the word a little bit. Andrew Cuomo said, a friend, his mother often said, a friend in need is a friend indeed. All right, that's awesome. Keisha Bottoms, she's the mayor of Atlanta. So I'm very, very happy to have Mayor Keisha Bottoms tweet back to Governor Andrew Cuomo, which is awesome. So I do follow them on Twitter. Okay, so my name is LaQueen Battle. I am a certified medical assistant. I'm certified through American Red Cross and American Heart Association in CPR, as well as adult and pediatric first aid. I've taken both classes. They are separate. CPR, AED, and adult and pediatric first aid having to do with choking, trauma, heart attacks, anything that has to do with basic first aid. So I'm continually taking classes, as well as I'm continually taking classes right now. We're online through Harvard edX. I'm taking community health classes. I'm also getting certified through the state of Massachusetts to become a certified as a community health worker. I'm a nonprofit. Battle First Aid Responder Services is right here, is a certified nonprofit through the state of Massachusetts as well as the city of Boston. And I do look forward towards expanding into New York and taking care of some things that some old business that I had to handle back last year, as well as to Chicago, and taking care of some community help that a lot of communities on the South Side need help. So I'm just now starting my business. I started this 2 months ago in June, and it's almost August. you know, I'm still working with this, working with the platform, doing my own business, becoming a business owner, as well as becoming a director of a nonprofit organization. So I am the president, I am the director, I'm the owner, but I do have volunteers that help me. Every single event, you guys follow me on social media, they come to my events, they come to the rallies, they come to the protests and the march, and I always have volunteers that help me out. So thank you to all the volunteers that have helped me out at every single event. I am not alone. I do really, really appreciate all the volunteers that have worked with me at Occupy New York City Hall, at all the protests here in Boston, as well as New York, and in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which I just came back from the National Mothers March in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I just want to go ahead and give a shout out to all the volunteers that were there with me in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I thank you guys. I really do appreciate it. I'm trying to make this a little bit better. There we go. So I really do appreciate all the volunteers that have worked with me. And I am applying to graduate school and nursing school and medical school. So I'm running this business at the same time. I'm running this nonprofit. At the same time, I'm applying to graduate school for nursing. I'm taking 3 online classes right now. And I'm applying to graduate school, either medical school for public health, or PA or MD, and also trying to get my RN within the next year. So I got a lot of things ahead of me, and I'm a daddy's girl, and I give a shout out to my father, Larry Donnell Battle Sr., who raised me up to be a strong, young, beautiful, young, and strong, determined young woman. So, and his home business that he had, Pounds Electronics. So thank you, Daddy. I love you in Fort Worth, Texas, White Summit, Texas. So pretty much, I just want to give a shout out to all the organizations that have helped me out. I really do appreciate you guys. Mass Action Brutality here in Boston, Massachusetts. The Safe Havens here in Boston, Massachusetts, as well as to all the organizations, Black Lives Matter here in Boston, Massachusetts, all the nonprofits that have been a part of me, to Harvard University, MIT, Boston University, University of Massachusetts here at Boston, Mayor Bonnie Wash, Governor Baker, Governor Baker of Massachusetts, Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York, Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, Governor Newsom of California, and Governor and Governor of Texas. The governor of Texas. So I have families in different cities there, so I just want to go ahead and connect with them, as well as to my military service members and family, friends and family. My little brother, Lakeem Jamari Harris, who was currently serving in the United States Marine Corps, hoorah. My other cousins and uncle, Manzi Clay and his sons, who he served with the United States National Guard and the United States Navy, and his sons, which are currently serving in the United States Navy and the United States Marine Corps, as well as to my Aunt Darlene Mercer, who served the United States Army, my great uncle Jack Battle, who served the United States Army during Vietnam and World War II, as well as to my friend Charleston Burke, who is a current Marine, and his life is doing so much better. He's currently stationed in Fort Worth, Texas, and he's currently serving the United States Marine Corps, as well as to my friend Mary Johnson, who is a first second lieutenant United States Army. My high school sweetheart, Craig Eddie White, he goes by Buddy, and his wife, Kriana White, and he is currently retired from the United States Air Force, as well as to special mention to my great uncle and sister relative, Samuel J. Battle, who was the first Black police chief of New York City. So there's a lot of things that a lot of people I've got to connect with and make a special mention out to. So again, I have a lot of military family, I have a lot of police members. I support police and everybody that they do. At the same time, I have to continue to support the community and help out my community, family, the Black community, people on the streets, to provide first aid services. Anybody that's going through domestic violence situation, it's really hard for me to comprehend at times because I'm busy, as well as to people that need assistance. Okay, so sometimes I'm a plain Jane, sometimes I'm a drama queen. It really just depends. I would like to be a need to people at 24 hours a day, but sometimes you just get tired and worried. You got to take care of your basic necessities first: food, water, and shelter. But right now, I focus on my career and I focus on this goal that I have. So I'm very, very happy to be a part of this movement. To have done any public speeches yet, but I'm very happy to be a part of this movement and be involved in the Black Lives Matter movement, be involved in helping with medical um, uh, medic services, being part of the street medics team, on people that have learned and done resources and done a lot of community events. Done a lot of being available for these young people in their time of need and distress at all hours of the day, from a protest at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to a protest at 1 o'clock in the morning at night. In New York City, here in Boston, in Minneapolis, to Chicago, letting people know I'm always available and actually helping the demeanor of the crowd lessen from a hectic, scary, volatile situation to something that's calm, that could be under control. The police have it under control. The local mayor's office and the local council governments have it controlled, and now the young people have it controlled, so they can be on the same level. The young people are on the same level with the police, and that's the way it should be. It should not necessarily be a peaceful march. It should be, everybody should be on that same level. That means we already have a map out directions for the march. This is where the march starts. This is where the march ends. Okay. There's not a lot of safety concerns where everybody's going, okay, we know where it's going to start, we know where it's going to end. At the same time, though, if the situation gets out of control, the crowd gets a little wild, volatile, people start breaking in and breaking down windows and breaking into stores, start pretty much burning down police, having Molotov cocktails, then that's when the police needs to come in, step in, and take control of the situation. Take those unnecessary combatants out of the protest, out of the march, because usually all you need most of the time is one person, the leader, to come into a crowd of 5,000 people, start a fire, and that will turn everything out of control. Okay, so, and when a fire starts, it spreads, and you really don't want that to happen. You want everything to be nice, or not necessarily nice, but you want the pace to be on the same level. Okay, so the protesters are on the same level with the cops, even though they are very angry and upset about the brutality situation. It's okay to express yourself, but you have to express yourself in the right direction. You have to express yourself in a positive, in a forward movement. You don't want to go back. You want to go forward towards your movement, your laws, your government, whatever you're protesting for. You want to go forward. You want to put power and action towards the movement. You don't want to take away from action. You don't want to break down buildings, break down government buildings. You actually want to build up the movement. You want to have the protest, which leads to energy, which leads to action, which leads to movement, which leads to voting power, which leads to voting power, laws, and there you can actually create change. When you have people from the movement, people from these protests actually using that energy to go into office, go into the government, talk to their city councils, turn that talk into discussions, and actually have these young people from these protests run for office. And so what they're protesting for, that energy can actually turn it into voting energy, political energy, and in that way it will help move the movement, or whatever they're protesting against, or whatever they want, whatever the community wants, help the movement to move forward and not backwards, which has been a problem with the Black Lives Matter movement for the past 8 to 10 years. Okay, as well as dealing with police brutality, Occupy America, Occupy, Wall Street, any kind of big protest. They're in the space, they're marching for hours and hours, days, weeks, whatever. They're in that space, they're sitting there and camping out, whatever. But that energy level, that motion that they're trying to gather, to help the government to be on that same level, it's not moving them forward. Do you understand? They're just wasting time, wasting energy, and wasting a lot of young people's commitments. These young people want to move forward. They want to make changes in technology. They want to have careers. They want to have families. These young people have personal goals. At the same time, they want to be politically active and politically involved in a situation so that it can, what they want, they can get what they want and move it forward. Okay, and not necessarily backwards. So there's a lot of power behind this movement. It's great to be involved with this movement. It's great to actually have people to say, okay, we support the Black Black Lives Matter movement. We support our government officials. We don't necessarily agree with them on the same level. I just had a young man talk to me in Minneapolis saying that Al Sharpton doesn't necessarily represent the voices of the young people in the Black Lives Matter movement. And this young person, he was like in his late 20s, early 30s. Okay. Now, I'm not sure if I agree with that, but Al Sharpton's in his 60s, early 70s, and these young persons in their late 20s and early 30s. So you have to understand that young person may have his opinion, but somebody coming from Al Sharpton's experience knows that he can take everybody's opinion and still use it to garner the support that he needs to talk to these officials, to talk to international people, politicians, get the support that he needs to uplift the Black community, as well as that young person can get all the energy, talk to the politicians and do what they want to do to uplift their own personal community. Okay, so it takes a whole lot of energy. It takes thought, it takes support. You really, 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 and I speak out of my breath a lot. I speak out of my breath a lot, so bear with me, guys. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of support in order to get what you want accomplished. Okay, it's going to take some time. Now, going through all this police brutality, everything that's happened over the years, especially up until now with George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, this right here, the movement that happened, with the Black Lives Matter movement, with Occupy New York, Occupy City Hall, Occupy San Francisco, Occupy Seattle, Occupy Dallas, Occupy Chicago, all these young people movements, it did not start overnight, okay? It took one protest, one person after another young person after another young person to get together to become involved in their community, involved in international politics, involved in international governments, in order for them to come together, talk about what's going on, and actually have some energy together to fight for what they want to fight. Okay, so again, it doesn't happen overnight. Change doesn't happen overnight. Obama wasn't elected overnight. Okay, neither was Trump. It took them time after time, debate after debate, money after money for these people to come together and actually vote these men and women into office. Okay, it's going to take some time. Whether you're conservative or liberal, it's going to take some time for you to get your output, to get your energy out there, to get your voice out there, okay, to get your policies, whatever you want out there, so that you can not only necessarily get the support you need, the community activism and support that you need, the local people support, but that also you can get the financial support and the grants and all the financial assistance, the businesses, the startups, the buildings that you need to build up the community centers. You get all and here comes the money. The money will flow in once you start actually to put that into motion. Okay. Once you actually turn those words into reality. And that reality becomes, oh my God, we just have a new community center in our neighborhood. Oh my God, we have a new Boys and Girls Club. Oh my God, we have a new library in our community. Oh my God, we have a new elementary school, a middle school, high school in our community that wasn't there before. Okay, so it's going to take some time. And yes, the coronavirus, COVID-19, has brought down the economy, not just of the United States, but all around the world. It's closed down businesses. It's taken a lot away. It's inflated the US dollar. It's done a lot to the community. But this is not the first time that we've had an infectious viral disease that has stopped businesses from flowing. Okay, so at the same time, though, we still have to come together, unite against any kind of health crisis, any kind of government crisis, any kind of political crisis, medical crisis, or whatever that is standing in the way from us moving forward as a Black community, as a colored community. Okay? Okay. So again, there's going to take a lot of time. Right now, it's 8 o'clock here in Boston, Massachusetts. It's going to take a lot of time for us as a community to move forward in the right direction. It won't happen overnight. It will not happen overnight. It probably won't even start to happen even up until the end of 2020. It is a new millennial and it's a new decade. Even if we have a new man in office in the White House, or the same man in the White House, change won't happen overnight. But change does take time, and that's what we have to believe in, that change will happen. but it takes steps, and you turn those steps into action, and that action becomes reality for people. Okay, you're protesting, you're marching down the street, you're marching down your highways, you're marching your communities, you're gathering the community support. Now you need the government support to turn your actions, your movements into laws, into words, into reality. So you can make laws to stop the prejudice, to stop the lynching, to stop whatever it is in the community that is blocking us from moving forward. And that is why Dr. Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, Malcolm X, James Earl Jones, Rosa Parks, all these people from the civil rights movement fought for. They protested, they marched, they boycotted. And you know what? It changed it into the Civil Rights Act of 1965. It didn't stop prejudice, but it stopped segregation in public schools, and then into public facilities, and then into international law. It stopped segregation. It stopped it. It put a block into segregation. Even though there's still segregation in American schools today, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and 1965, signed by Lyndon B. Johnson and Dr. Martin Luther King, helped stop segregation in American society as well as all around the world. And right now, stopping segregation was actually just a footstool, a footstep in the right direction to help stop the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, as well as any other kind of prejudice groups, alt-right, alt-left, alt-right groups, stopped them from infiltrating into the American society, whether it was against Black people, colored folk, Negroes, or Latinos, Mexican immigrants, or the Native Indigenous people, or even against Asians during the Vietnam War. It stopped a lot of that movement, that negative, the race, the prejudice, the burning crosses, the bombing the churches, bombing elementary schools, bombing Black community centers. It didn't stop it, but it lessened the circumstance of it, and helped the community, the global society, know that we will not tolerate this from happening anymore. It didn't necessarily stop, put an end to it, but it stopped the global society from accepting it as a norm. And yes, that's what needs to happen. People need to say, having a Black man be shot on the street is not normal. Having a Black man's, a police cop put his foot, his stone cold boot on a Black man's neck for 30 seconds is not normal. And you know what? It's not normal, and we will not tolerate it to be normal. We do not accept this. And not only do we not accept this, but we will stop any further financial funding for this progress. We will take away your money, we will take your jobs, and we will take any kind of necessary tools that continue to support this violence against our people and against our society. We will stop it. And that is a lot coming from young people, millennials, not necessarily older, middle-aged people like myself in our 30s and 40s and 50s, but young people fresh out of high school, young people still in middle school, young people barely entering college, freshman kids, young teenager kids, 13, 14, 15 years old, protesting, marching in the streets all this summer, past the last 5 years. Young people, Generation X, Latinx. These new young people are greatly politically involved. They're 13, they're 14, they're 15 years old. They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're on WhatsApp, they're on TikTok. They have iPhones. They're building their own businesses. They're involved in STEM research. They're very smartly intelligent. And they know how to handle money. They're making more money now, more ever, than their parents did before 10 years ago. These young kids know more about money than we ever did growing up. It's not necessarily they're not learning money on the streets, but they're learning how to make money on the internet. That money is different now. The flow of money is different. It's not necessarily cash money. It's all about commerce. It's all about what you know and what you can do with what you know. It's all about the flow of money, not necessarily cold hard cash. It's all about how does money flow. If it's flowing this way, we go this way. If it's flowing this direction, we go this direction. Wherever politics goes, the generation goes. The young people go. If the young people don't go there, the money won't go over there. The money won't support it. If the money's not going over here, you won't see the young people here in this city. They'll come in there, protest for a couple of days, and then they will leave. Just like in Minneapolis right now. It's really sad. It's really, really sad. It is extremely sad. I was marching down the streets where that Wendy's was burned down in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I thought to myself, okay, so here's the city that George Floyd was shot at. Okay, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And you would imagine that there would be protests for the last 30 to 45 days in Minneapolis, Minnesota, St. Paul, Minnesota. And you would imagine that the community of Minneapolis would get funding, would get financial assistance to help build up the community, would help build up the people of Minneapolis. You would imagine that with all this international sensation, all this international media, okay, the protests, the violence, burning down the city of Minneapolis just because of the death of George Floyd. You would imagine that media people, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox News, everybody around from Reuters, from BBC, everybody from India, from London, from Paris, from Germany, everybody in the whole world has been to Minneapolis, Minnesota to see the George Floyd Memorial and to see the site that he was murdered. And you can imagine all the violence and brutality that has happened in Minneapolis over the past 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks. So the crowd came in, the media came into the city, and they left the city in the same condition, if not worse, before George Floyd was shot. So yes, the city of Minneapolis is still in ruins and is still in rubbles. Where has all that money, where has all those GoFundMe campaigns gone to? It has not gone to the city of Minneapolis. It has not gone to the local community members because you know what? Those buildings are still in ruins. That Wendy's that was shot up and burned down 2-3 weeks ago is still there. And there is no construction rebuilding in that community in Minneapolis. There is no construction. There is no bulldozers or anybody there. They're just leaving it as it is and expecting for something else to come in and burn down something else. Where is all this international media sensation, all the money going to? It's not going to the local community. Is it going to the family? Sometimes it goes to the family, sometimes it doesn't. And that's what we need to focus on when we're going towards Washington, D.C. When Dr. King, when Malcolm X came into the community, they focused on the local community. They had the sermons, they had the talks, they had the discussions, they had the protests. They came into the community, especially the Poor People's Campaign, especially the SCLC. They came into the community, they sat down with the young people, and they put the young people to help them organize against stopping segregation in the Black community. Okay? They helped put the young people together to help them organize and put together an action. They came to the city, they organized the young people, and then they left the city in a better condition and helped proceed towards the movement of desegregation. When Dr. King, when Stokely Carmichael, which eventually led to the Black Panther movement of the 60s and 70s. Jesse Jackson, Dr. King. I mean, the Fabulous Four. You know, let me see if I can find it in here. Let me see if I can find it here. Well, there was a group of powerful, influential men. Who was it? Bear with me, guys. Bear with me. Okay, there we go. Dr. Martin Luther King, John Lewis, Roy Wilkins, the Big Six. Oh, here we go, the Big Six. Dr. Martin Luther King of the SCLC, James Farmer of the CORE group, the Congress for Racial Equality, John Lewis of the SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinator Committee, Whitney Young of the National Urban League, Roy Wilkins of the NAACP, and A. Philip Randolph of the Harlem Renaissance Movement. These basic 4-6 leaders helped create the civil rights movement, helped lead it in from marches into political action into permanent law that changed the United States Constitution. What came out of the 1964-1965 civil rights movement? An end to desegregation in the American society, not necessarily an end to prejudice, but an end to desegregation, which helped put a social end to segregation. And it wasn't necessarily an end to racism or an end to segregation or an end to the Ku Klux Klan. It was a social movement towards the end, towards desegregation, which led to these further groups helping to promote their violent and disturbing ways, which helped to again bring a social end to racism in American public. It wasn't necessarily an end to it. It was more of a, how do you say, a social barrier towards the young people in the American society accepting racism as a norm. Now, people have their own opinions. You have the Archie Barnacles or whatever, people have their set in their own ways. But as the American society of the 70s and 80s of the Vietnam War movement and the 80s, these young people now had a chance to express themselves like, we're not going to accept this anymore. We're young people. We're free. We're radicals. We have energy. We have movement. We have power. We're not going to accept our old parents' ways. We're going to do what we want to do. And now we want to create a free society where everybody will experience peace and love. And we won't tolerate what our parents went through. We will do what we want to do. And we will live peaceful and free in our society. So, I mean, there's a lot during the 60s movement, during, Dr. King and Malcolm X and the Harlem Renaissance and KKK, everything that happened in the 60s politically. And then it led to the 70s and 80s with the Vietnam War, with the Cold War. And then it led into the 90s, where we had the invention of the internet with AOL and Microsoft and computers and the internet. And now it led into the social media sensation of the new millennial era, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, everything like that. And still, young people have the power and the movement and the momentum to move forward their society. Whatever generation they're in, whether it's the generation of the baby boomers in the 1950s up into the generation of these now young Gen X, they still have the power and the momentum to build whatever they want to build and to destroy whatever kind of social or political climate that they will not tolerate anymore, whether it be the KKK or art right or art left. These young people in every single generation have the power and the momentum to not tolerate any kind of hate against their society. They have the power. They have the power against it. Okay, so there's a lot of things that we're moving forward to. Again, this is my first discussion on the National March on Washington. I'm kind of a mess right now. My hair is kind of a mess. I still have a lot to talk about. I will try to go ahead and do a PowerPoint towards it. I'm going to be posting this on my YouTube channel, as well as on my Twitter feed, as well as on my Facebook feed and my LinkedIn feed, pretty much letting us know that this is not the end of the movement. Okay, this is only a beginning, where we actually have our mothers and our young people running for office. And not only necessarily running for office, but they are winning political seats. Okay, so it's great. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to actually see these mothers of the Black Lives Matter movement, these mothers that are using their sons and daughters' deaths as a platform, a positive platform, to help them get into political activism and to run for office and to run seats that have been put in stone by the white man society. Okay. So again, it's just started. The Reverend Al Sharpton and his organizing team that's going to be a part of the National March of Washington on August the 28th. They have a lot to do. There's over 20, 30 organizations already involved in that march. And I'm not sure if it's going to be one day or if it's going to be a whole week, but I plan to be a part of that. And I plan to be there and see where my services are needed, as well figure out what kind of teams are going to DC, if I can hang a tag along with them on the trip there, go there, have a couple of hotel stays, figure out what groups are going to be there, be involved, see where my services are needed, check on generator issues, power outages, speaker issues, electronic issues, check on fire safety for these events, check on public safety for these events, check on the safety of infants and elderly people, children and elderly people for these events. Try to make sure that it is known, okay? You need to check on the safety as well as the welfare of elderly people and young children at these events. And not many people think about it, but you really do need to actually check on the welfare of the vulnerable people. So I am just getting started. I had my cup of coffee today, which is great, and my coffee mug. And there is a lot of things that I've got to plan in motion, as well as getting ready for graduate school. I just had 3 of my friends just graduate from graduate school, as well as my little sister, La Princess Elaine Kennard, which she just graduated from graduate school with her degree, and her graduate degree in social work in the University of California. So I want to go ahead and give a shout out to my little sister, who just graduated from University of California with her graduate degree in social work. So I want to give a shout out to my little sister. I'm very proud of her. And there's a lot of things which I need to talk about. We'll talk about a little bit further. So again, this is only the beginning. I've got to get my plane ticket ready for Washington, D.C., as well as my hotel fare, and try to get in contact with the organizers at these events. Whether it's a weekend event, whether it's a whole week event, or whether it's just one day. But who knows what Al Sharpton and his organizing team is going to do. There's a lot of other things I need to focus on, as well as we'll be having upcoming discussions of what is going on with the Black community and the Black Lives Matter movement, talking about the propaganda that is being done with Black women and the current administration of office. A lot of these Black women do not. Okay, so there's another issue I got to talk about really quickly. Now, we have the current political climate in office, COVID-19 with the whole government shutdown, business have been closed down, as well as the Black community, the Black Lives Matter movement, protesting, marching, churches being involved, community leaders being involved, ministers being involved in this movement. And still at the same time, part of the Black community is still supporting the men in office who is against our progress, who is against a movement, okay? Now, the current president of office says, I'm a nonprofit, okay? Battle First Aid Responder Services. I have to stand in need where the medical services are needed, and I have to protect the government because I have prior military service as well as public and medical services. I have to stand in need. I'm right dead smack in the center. So part of the Black Lives Matter people may not like me just because of what I do and what I support, as well as the current political climate where government officials may not like me because I support the young people, as well as because I am not employed with any organization right now. Okay, so I'm smack dead here in the center. Now, personally, as a Black, African American, Latino descent, Native descent, I feel that the Black community is being exploited by the current administration in office. Now, when I say exploited, what I mean is that our demands, our opinions, our thoughts, everything that we want to happen is being put behind in order for money, in order for the man, in order for money, in order for politics to have a stepping stone in front of us instead of what we want to be heard. Okay, so politics and money is in front of us when we are constantly every single day having young Black men and women being shot, not necessarily by police, but being lynched every single day. So if the demands of the Black community were being met, why are we still having Black men and women being lynched in today's society? Why do we not have a current United States president talking about that? We have these rich, wealthy Black men and Black women leaders, political leaders as well as church leaders on TV every single day saying they currently support the current administration in office. They support the Black Lives Matter movement. But when I go into normal every single day American cities, especially when I go into the city of Minneapolis, Minnesota, where the George Floyd murder started the last 45, 50 days of protesting, why is the city of Minneapolis not being rebuilt after everything has destroyed it? Why are there not people standing guard and helping protect the safety and the security of local people currently living in Minneapolis? So what I mean by exploited, what I mean is that you say one thing, but you do another. So this is what we want as a Black community. This is what we're saying. This is what we're proposing to you. This is what we're protesting for. But politics, here's what they want to hear. Okay, politicians, whether they're liberal politicians or whether they're the conservative politicians, they hear what they want to hear. At the same time, though, they also hear where the money goes. They also see where the money goes. So if you're in a city like Boston, Massachusetts, where does the money go? The money goes to the local city government. The money goes towards the hospitals. But does it go to Black communities? Does it go to help building up schools? Does it help towards building up community centers? And when you're in a city like Minneapolis, Minnesota, where the George Floyd protest started and where he was murdered, you would think that there would be money to help building up community centers of Boys and Girls Clubs and schools, and that you will see all around the city of Minneapolis, here is the site of a new elementary school for the city of Minneapolis, the people of Minneapolis. Here's the site of a new Boys and Girls Club. Here's the site of a new church in the city of Minneapolis. You would think that that's where the Black Lives Matter movement started the last 50, 60 days, 3 months, 4 months. You would think that they would have construction building in the city of Minneapolis, but it's not necessarily so. If this is where the movement started, then there should be seeds left from that movement to help rebuild up that community and not leave it in the rubbles that they just came out of. So yes, they burned down a Wendy's, but right across the street, there should be, here is the site of a new library. We're building a new library for the Black community. We're building a Black library for the community. We're building a church for the community. You would think if something came down, something else would come up in its place, but it's not necessarily so. And that's how politics works. And that's how people work. Politics usually goes wherever the money goes. Politics is always about money, and politics is always about people. And especially when dealing with politicians running for political office, especially if there's a presidential election coming up within the next 3 to 4 months, the next 12 weeks, you would think that all this energy of the Black Lives Matter movement should be energy towards money to help rebuild up the families as well as rebuilding up Black communities, but it's not necessarily so. So the money goes to the families, but the families move out of the communities because they want to get away. They want to get to a safer city, a safer community. So that family leaves the community and they leave it in the same condition that they left from. And I do that all the time. I leave a space, I leave an organization. And I would think if I left that organization, I left that organization in a better place than it was before. I help train up people. I help clean the community. I help clean the organization up. And I left it in a better place than it was before I even came up in there. And that's how I pursue my life things to be done, but that's not necessarily the case. So you have all these protests, these people and protests every single day marching from the site of the murder to the city, the state capitol, and you would imagine that's the way that the money would flow towards. The money would flow towards the site of the murder to the state capitol, but it doesn't not necessarily mean that way. So people march for hours and hours and days and months and months. And you would imagine that the spirit of these people marching through the trauma and the horror of seeing somebody shot and killed and murdered, you would imagine that that spirit would flow towards uplifting the community, but it does not necessarily mean so. And when the Rodney King murders happened in Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, as well as all around the United States, were in rubbles for days, weeks, and months until people from the civil rights movement had to come together and say, enough is enough. Let's rebuild our communities. We're tired of the rioting. We're tired of the looting. We're tired of the fires. Let's rebuild our community and turn it into something positive out of this trauma and violence of a man being shot. And that was Rodney King in the 80s and 90s. Imagine today, from Rodney King up until George Floyd and all these young people that have been shot by the Black Lives Matter movement. What has changed from Rodney King to George Floyd? What has changed? Nothing. From Rodney King into George Floyd, what has changed in the Black community? Nothing. So we've got to focus on uplifting each other. And you know what? History always repeats itself. History always repeats itself. You either learn from history or you're bound to repeat it. And I know it's been said plenty of times over and over again, but you've got to learn from your past in order to move forward. And yes, that's where counseling helps. That's where counseling comes into mind. Counseling does work, but if you don't do your homework when you go to counseling, or if action doesn't come out of a talk with a professional, nothing's going to change in your life. You can sit down and you can talk with somebody for 30 minutes, an hour, every week or every month. But if you don't do something that comes out of that talk, if your life doesn't move forward, if you don't try to put some kind of action into motion from talking with a professional about your problems, your life is not going to change. Whether it's talk therapy, whether it's medication therapy, whether it's physical therapy, if you are with a professional who has been through experience the same thing that you have been through, or if you have been talking with somebody that has been a mentor, a friend, a pastor, a sister, a brother, or cousin who are a friend in your community who has been through the same thing that you have been through, and you don't change your life out of that discussion that you've had with that person, your life is not going to change. And it does not necessarily mean that you have to move up out of that situation. It just means that you have to make a change. And that is what the Black community still has problems with, making a change. The Black community, from Dr. King to Rodney King, and right now, even up until George Floyd, still has not changed. We have more Black millionaires and billionaires than ever before. But if you walk down the street up into an MLK in every single city, what do you see? The same thing. So we have to uplift our community and help put us into focus. What do we want as a community? We want better schools. We want community centers. We want to stop the police violence. We want to hire our own police force. We want grocery stores. We want good food. We want better housing in the Black community, which is nothing new. It's nothing new what we want. It is nothing new. It is the same thing over and over and over and over again. We want better schools. We want access to education. We want access to housing. Education, housing, and equal opportunity employment. It's the same thing, and nothing has changed about our demands for the Black community. Nothing has changed. From slavery during the 1900s and the 1920s, up until Dr. King and Malcolm X, up until right now with Jesse Jackson, and even Obama, nothing has changed about what the Black community wants. You can put technology into power. You can put Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and everything about that into place. Computers and internet, you can put all that into focus, into motion, but still the same thing remains the same thing. Whether you have a Harvard degree or whether you have a community college degree, the same thing remains the same thing. I want access to employment, I want access to education, and I want access to affordable housing. It's the same thing, whether you're in an apartment or whether you have a mortgage. It's the same thing, and our basics remain the same. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And you know what? It's not even about the Black community. It's about any community or any kind of people that have been segregated against the norms of society. Even the Jewish people, even the Jewish population, even the Muslims, even the Latinos and Mexicans, they want the same thing. They want the same thing. And that's why America was built. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. We want to be able to come to a new land, to come to a new country, and be able to live and support our families. I want to come to a new country. I want to be able to have a free and a safe place to live and to build for me and my family. I want to come to a country and be able to afford the education in order to get a job or to get a career, to be able to afford and take care of my family. I want to come into a country and be able to afford a safe place of rest or a safe housing for me and my family against any kind of war, any kind of trauma, any kind of political abuse for me and my family. And that is a problem that the Black community does not know. They have cities, okay? They're called cities, they're called sanctuary cities. People all around the world come into these sanctuary cities. They come into sanctuary cities for protection from international crime, from international conflict. These people come all around the world into sanctuary cities. And that is what the current political climate in Washington does not support. The current political office in Washington is taking away funding from sanctuary cities, federal funding from sanctuary cities. And if the Black community knew how much federal funding that the current administration and the White House has took away from sanctuary cities, it would not support the current administration in office. Sanctuary cities: Chicago, Illinois; Los Angeles, California; Houston, Texas; Boston, Massachusetts; Miami, Florida; and New York City. And even in a very conservative upstate New York. You'd be surprised how much federal funding that the mayors of these sanctuary cities have to deal with, a loss thereof, because the current conservative or whatever political climate that is in the White House right now does not support, not necessarily immigration, but it does not support providing assistance for people from other countries to come to America and take more advantage of our resources than Americans take advantage of even ourselves. How does an immigrant from a low third world country come into America, stay in America for 1 year, work 3 jobs, work minimum wage demeaning jobs, come into America for 6 months to a year, and leave America and be able to take their money that they made here and on our land, take it back to their home country, and be able to support their family for the next 5 to 10 years. And that's not necessarily from Latin America. How is that possible that we're here in America for all our lives, for 30, 40, 60 years, and somebody from another country can come in here in less than 6 months a year, go back to their home country and be able to build houses, be able to build schools, and they do it every single year. Every single year, they come to America for 6 months, they go back to their home country for 6 months. They come to America for 6 months, work, get educated, they leave, they go back to their home country for the next 6 months. They come to America for 6 months, they leave for 6 months, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. 6 months here in our country, 6 months in their other country. 6 months here in our country, 6 months in their in their home country. Europe, Africa, Mexico, Latin America, Russia, China, 6 months here in America, 6 months in their home country. They do it back and forth all the time, all the time. And it's not necessarily terrorism, have anything to do with it. Now, if the Black community could do that, imagine how much more power and financial money we would help to rebuild our war-torn communities that have been torn up from the 80s and the 90s, from the crack epidemic and the AIDS epidemic of the 80s and 90s. Imagine how much more uplifting our communities would be. We come to the city, we be educated for 6 months. We go back to our hometowns for 6 months. We come to the city to be educated. We go back to our neighborhoods and stay there for 6 months and build. Keep building back in our neighborhoods. Go back to school, be educated. Go back to home, rebuild there. Go back to schools and be educated. Every 6 months, every 6 months. Just like people all around the world do. But it's not necessarily the case. And you don't have to be Black or immigrant to understand what I'm talking about either. You don't have to be an older person in your 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s to know what I'm talking about. You could be a teenager right now. A 12 or 13-year-old kid knows what I'm talking about. So why does not the Black community in our 40s and our 50s and our 60s understand how this works? Why are we still low income, living on Section 8, living on Social Security, not able to actually get up out of Social Security, get up out of Section 8, that mentality, and being able to afford the regular cost of living in an American city? Our expectations should not be on, oh, I'm happy to get on Section 8. Oh, I'm happy to get on Social Security. No, that's not where our expectations should be. Our expectations should be higher than that. The goal is to be on Section 8 for 6 months to a year, work a job, save money to get up out of Section 8, to save money or to build a business, for that to be able to support you and your family to get up out of that government assistance help. And it's not necessarily conservative values or liberal values to tell you that. When you're on government assistance, the goal is short-term funding and short-term assistance, and to be educated, to go to school, to go to a trade school, to go to a university, or even to your local community center, get a trade, get a job, and make a business off of that job. Do your own business, get more educated, continue in that business, hire people to work for that business. And then you know what happens when that business gets good? You sell the business and you make a profit off of that business. That's what happened in The Pursuit of Happyness. Spike Lee, all these directors, they worked in their community. They helped build up the community and learn how to get off of being subsidized for the rest of their lives. If you're stuck, and that's another issue with the Black community, you're stuck on that welfare mentality, and that welfare mentality has not changed from the 70s up until the 80s, the 90s, and right now even the new millennial era. That welfare mentality still has not changed. You want to get off and become independent of welfare. I get a job, I just graduated from college, and you know what? Why am I back on welfare if I just graduated from college and I have a 4-year degree? I'm a manager of a grocery store. I'm a manager of a chain of restaurants. I have a hair business. I have an internet business. I'm a manager of a store, and I'm still on welfare for the rest of my life. That should not be the case. Oh, I have a house. Oh, I'm happy I have a 3, 4, 5 bedroom house. and I'm still on welfare? No, because who has ownership of that house? And usually you have to work with the government for 10, 15, 20, 30 years in order to even get any kind of percentage of ownership in that house. You have to stay in that house for 10 years in order to get any kind of ownership. I have 4 or 5 kids and I'm still on welfare. That should not be the case. You have 4 or 5 kids, you go to school, you work, they go to school, they work, they grow up, they go to college, they become educated, they go to college, they come back here and be able to help the parents take care of the mortgage in order for there to be family ownership in that property. For the family to actually have assets, to help the Black community build up assets. And right now, that's another issue. We don't have any kind of assets. We have money, we have cars, we have clothes, but the Black community does not have any kind of assets to help leave the future generation with. What kind of asset is a 2019 BMW Mercedes to a 6-month-old infant child? Is this BMW Mercedes going to leave this 6-month-old child with anything? No. Or a Louis Vuitton backpack, or makeup, even makeup. You need to leave that 6-month-old child with something that they can live off of. Where there's gold jewelry, leave that child with something that is valued for the rest of their lives. Silver, gold, some kind of asset. Leave that asset in the family. Housing, stocks and bonds, leave that child with some kind of asset so their future can build up off of it. But anyway, I'm just getting started. There's a lot of things that we need to work on towards this March on Washington that Dr. King was protesting for, that he spoke about, he preached about, that Malcolm X preached about and fought for. Stokely Carmichael, Jesse Jackson, Angela Davis, Maya Angelou, all the leaders that we no longer have with us today. We have to build up for it. It's not necessarily the Black Lives Matter movement. It's whatever that we're fighting for. We need to help build up our communities and leave something behind for our children. Leave an asset for our children to be left behind. So if the George Floyd movement started in this city, leave the city in a better condition than it was before you went in there. Leave the city in a better condition than the Rose Age started with when you got there. Build up the city, build up Minneapolis, build up St. Paul. Send up city grants to the city. Send block grants to the city. It is ridiculous. It is sad. The families have support, the families have houses, but the local city, the local community is still left in ruins. In ruins. It is so sad. It is sad. To see a $1 million Target, a $1 million neighborhood Target, even a restaurant chain, not even Wendy's. Somebody needs to go into Minneapolis and help rebuild that city. You have the money left, but you know what? You could bring up new money into that city. Where there's a lack, there's always opportunity. And you best believe if the Black community does not take advantage of the opportunity from the George Floyd protests, does not take advantage of the opportunities that are available right now in the city of Minneapolis, somebody else will take advantage of that opportunity in Minneapolis, and it won't be for the plight of the Black community. They see the holes that are left there from the protests and from the looting, and you best believe somebody else will come to that city, will buy up those lots, and will build whatever they want to build in that place that was before it left it. And when they build whatever they want to build from those rubbles, the Black community will be like, why is this thing here? We don't support this. Don't they see what we went through? Yeah, that real estate agent, that store owner saw what we went through, but you know what? We didn't take advantage of the opportunity that was there in that space. Why is this thing here? Why is this club here? Why is there a strip club here at the site that George Floyd was murdered? Why is there a strip club here? Why is there an adult toy store here? Why is this church here? The Black community doesn't support this church. The Black community doesn't support an adult strip club right here in the place of where of the looting. No, the Black community doesn't support it. But you know what? The Black community did not take advantage of the space that was left. It did not help rebuild that space up. So somebody else had to take advantage of that space. It's empty space, a big old empty lot. Somebody has to take advantage of it. You have to build something out of that empty lot. You can't just leave empty space, empty property. The property tax is going to go down, and the government cannot get money off of lost taxes, lost real estate, lost property values. The government has to increase, the local city governments have to increase the property values, and so they have to build up something in that place. So why is this school here? We don't support this school. Why is there a golf course where the Target used to be? The Black community does not need a golf course. Why is there a golf course here? What do we need with a golf course? Yeah, well, obviously somebody took advantage of that space that we did not take advantage of. This community does not need a golf course. We don't need a golf course. We don't need a strip club. Yeah, well, somebody else had to take advantage of that space. And now they're making money off of what we left behind. That's how it works. We don't need a strip club. We don't need an adult toy store, bookstore. We don't need a golf course. We need schools, we need education, we need community centers, we need Boys and Girls Club, we need youth clubs, we need schools, we need churches, we need community churches to come in there and help rebuild our communities. Or else, you know what? Somebody else will. Whether we like it or not, somebody else will. But anyway, okay, so it's going on 9 o'clock here. You see it's 9 o'clock. This is the Queen Battle of Battle First Aid Services. This is the first of my talks. I should have posted the link to my Zoom meeting here on Eventbrite, but I will go ahead and post a link towards the future talks, the future discussions on my Eventbrite, as well as on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever it is that we need to talk about what's going forward. Because Dr. King did not have a dream for nothing. He had a dream to put it into vision and focus, and to turn that vision into reality. And that's what we need as a Black community. We need to turn our protests and our marches into reality, turn that reality into action and movement, and turn that movement into power, and that power into voting power. Okay, so this is Queen from Battle First Aid Responder Services here, coming live from downtown Boston, Massachusetts. I still have a lot to work on. Bear with me. The fight is worth it. The battle The battle may have been won, but the war is still not over. Okay, the war is still not over. So we have a lot to do, whether you're liberal or whether you're conservative. The world is changing, whether you like it or not. We're in a new millennial and we're in a new decade. The times are changing. You just have to adjust to the times. All right. So this is LaQueen. I love you guys. Please continue to keep me in your thoughts and prayers for my safety, for my financial safety and welfare, as well as for a lot of things that are going on in my life, and help me to move forward in the direction that God has called for me to be. I love you guys. Keep me in your thoughts and prayers. Bye.